Hello, everybody. It's Mary Lynn Harris here of Hard at Work and on the Creating an Impactful Legacy podcast show. And today I have a very special guest all the way from UK. Can you imagine? She traveled all the way to the US to have a conversation with me. So anyway, Suzuki, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sakshi here. Introductions are always tricky, right? You're figuring out which parts of your life you want to share with the audience. I'm a psychologist by education, but by profession, I think many different things. So consultant, occupational psychologist by profession. I had my own startups when I was quite young. From the age of 17. So entrepreneurial in that sense as well. I help a lot of startups today invest and govern and build strategy for themselves, all of them based on artificial intelligence, because that's where my life started as well, with artificial intelligence in the workplace. And I do a lot of charity work because I started my own charity when I was 17 again. So any given day looks that crazy for me. It has all of these different hats that I wear, and elements in my life, which often spill into the weekends. So that's a little bit about me, I guess.
Yeah. I'm just, as you're talking artificial intelligence, how does that play a role in business? Like you're saying, you help people start up. So if that's the direction, what does that look like?
My first startup, which is quite an helpful example, is it was using artificial intelligence for hospitality sector and for restaurants, and looking at how this technology can improve their number of people who come into the restaurant and their experience when they order food with them. The startups that I work with use AI to build engagement for employees. That can be through nudging behavior, that can be through different algorithms that they put in place for employees to talk to managers. For some other organizations, it's much bigger than that. It's about changing or creating a whole industry based on artificial intelligence, from like gaming to programming to NFTs. So it's a wide portfolio.
Yeah, sounds like it's very in depth and very broad-based, so I guess I would guess that your psychology degree really would help a lot in that artificial intelligence.
Correct. Yeah, very rightly guessed. And that is something that a lot of people feel that there is no connection in. But actually, my degree and my education as psychology has helped me even more. Than some people who are from that educational background but don't really know how to sell the tech or what to do with the tech.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely, it's come in handy.
Yeah, because I can imagine that whatever we have experience in, whatever skill set, there's so many things we can take our skill set and spread it around to other industries or technical or non-technical uses, right?
Precisely.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your nonprofit and how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess like most people would have figured it out by now that I'm not from the UK. I'm from India,
right?
Which is where I grew up, and I was doing everything that any other teenager was doing. Going out with friends and looking at my passions and hobbies and interests, and a lot of them were around arts and dance and whatnot. And I remember specifically one day feeling like I need to do some new activity. And there was this social service club that was in our college, in our school, that was working. It's called Rotary International. A lot of people must be familiar with it. It's worldwide. And I remember my friend saying, she's signing up for it if I want to come in. And I said, I'm not philanthropist. I'm not that selfless kind of a person who is like kind at heart. I'm more of a, leader. I'm more of a dynamic person. So it's not for me.
Yeah.
But, like most teenagers, I did what she was doing because she was my friend, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. Ended up joining it. And I actually realized that a lot of the social work was about leadership
Yeah.
and management and coordination and collaboration, all the things that I liked.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was more satisfying than, leading, a dance society or
Right.
leading like a debate group for me, because it gave me something back that was bigger than me.
Right.
Um, and 2 or 3 years working into that, through my college life as well, I figured out that although people like myself and many other youth volunteers want to help,
Right.
we don't really know how to help.
Right.
We
Right.
have no guidance. We come in as we come in with, whatever skill
Yeah.
set we have.
Yeah.
And we go out and we are thinking of, changing the lives of these people that we talk to, blood donors or
Yeah.
tree plantation drives or education.
Yeah.
And I often said to myself, we are probably creating more issues than
Yeah.
solving, because we
Mhm.
don't really know what we are doing. Our body language, our words can be too harsh,
Mhm.
without us realizing. We
Mhm.
have no guidance on what to do. So that's when I started my charity. And my charity, it wasn't a charity, to be honest. It was a project, and it was
Right.
all about giving the right guidance
Yeah.
to people who are making an impact.
Mhm.
And the basic fundamental was, I would invite people, from the industry that I went out and made networks with as a 17-year-old,
Right.
and say, can you give some guidance? Can you come in and do a session and
Yeah.
guide the volunteers? What are they doing incorrectly? What do they need to be mindful of? These were psychologists, these
Right.
were confidence building people, and these were marketing people. Um, and it was amazing. Like, I had 300 volunteers, and these people stayed with me right up until COVID, which
Wow.
which meant I had 100% volunteer retention rate, and it just doesn't happen in this field.
No, it doesn't.
People just leave all the time. And
Yeah.
in hindsight, a lot of it was attributed to the fact that I was investing in volunteers as much as they were investing then in the planet.
Right.
um, which is, such a easy thing to think about for organizations where people are paid, and there is an expectation that if you're paying them and they're working for you, you will upskill them.
Yeah.
But there is no expectation like this in unpaid voluntary work.
Right.
Makes sense. I mean, these people are actually saving the planet, right? You
Yeah.
would want to invest in them a bit more than people who are destroying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a charity.
Yeah. So were you in the Rotaractors or Rotary itself?
So I was a Rotaractor, now a
Yeah.
Rotarian,
Okay.
which has been quite a journey itself. Although the project, it became a flagship project for Rotary
Okay.
in Delhi, in my district. But now it has become sort of larger than life
Yeah.
and gone out of the Rotary family as well. And we do different things with the projects now. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So did you find that because you provided education for your volunteers that they're more willing to hang out with you rather than just always looking at how much you have to pay, you know, kind of thing?
My whole project was based on zero pay, zero cost model. So
Mm-hmm.
nobody paid a dime ever, and I never asked for a dime.
Right.
Uh, Everything was zero cost. Everything was based on reuse and recycle. So I
Mm-hmm.
think money was never an issue, uh,
Mm-hmm.
just because the way we were set up. I think people were hanging out with me more because, and nobody has asked me this question before, but so this one interaction I remember really well. One of the first people who joined my project,
Right.
I was going around in the summer months of India in May and June around different campuses and parks and gardens,
Yeah.
and just gathering people and saying what I had to say.
Yeah.
And people were gathering and listening in, and then we would, whoever was interested, we would go and sit in a cafe and speak.
Right.
And this was my only strategy. I didn't have, a big
You don't have a
auditorium.
budget or anything like that.
It
No.
wasn't like that. And so I remember one of these conversations, a group of really inspiring, really motivated women in STEM degrees sitting there saying, we want to help.
Yeah.
And the conversation went on for an hour. I told them about my vision and what we're going to do. And then as I sort of got up to leave and be like, okay, thank you for listening, give me your details, let's get in touch. One of them just held my hand and she said, no, tell us more, sit down, tell us more. And I just looked at them and said, what do you want to know? And they were like, tell us about you. Like, what are you doing? What is your life like? How do you manage so many things? Where is the time coming from? What is the project management skills? Where did you pick it up? How do you do networking? All these questions.
Yeah.
And for me, that became something that I did on a daily basis then, just speaking to people
Right.
day in and day out about how am I managing things? How are things going? What is my next step? Things like that.
Yeah.
And that's why I guess people just stayed.
Yeah.
The project itself had a lot of catchment area, I would say.
Yeah.
So because I knew what I don't like as a volunteer myself,
Yeah.
I made sure that these volunteers don't have to face that. So very, very, very simple things. One thing was, don't travel more than 10 minutes. So I remember in my volunteering years, we would travel like 3 hours, 2 hours sometimes, just to get
Wow.
to the people who we needed to help.
Yeah.
Because Delhi is a big city and
Yeah.
travel is difficult,
Mhm.
it's long and scary journeys.
Yeah.
So I always said, you don't need to do that. You can help people who are in 10 minutes of walking distance. There's
Right.
always somebody who needs help who is
Yeah.
in 10 minutes of walking distance. So
Mhm.
that was the first rule, don't pick up communities to educate and to help who are more than 10 minutes walking distance.
Yeah.
The second thing was, I would make sure that uh, people don't have to choose between college degree and volunteering, because that's another reason why people dropped out. I have
Right.
too many classes and it clashes with the timings, and
Yeah.
I don't know like exactly how I will manage my time. So that involved giving a lot of time management sessions, sharing
Mhm.
my strategies with them. One of the techniques I had that I still share is called burning the rice technique, is how do you multitask, which was quite funny and quite the hit. Uh, and the third thing was, don't spend money. So if you need tools to help,
Yeah.
community can come together and give you those tools. And it worked for 6 years. We never even had to buy a pen,
Yeah.
people reusing and recycling everything.
Yeah.
So
So what was your big project that you started?
it was around education. So we were
Right.
partnering with NGOs, with government schools. So in India, government schools are low funded schools,
Right.
uh, which don't have much resources and support. So we were partnering with those government schools, with not for profits who were already in the equal education sector.
Right.
Uh, and my volunteers would go in as teachers, as admin help, as activities for these students.
Okay.
But the main aim was to really bring back a lot of this population into the schools, because we had high dropout rates.
Yeah.
In those years, people
Mhm.
were asking their kids to not go to school, instead help with labor and
Right.
wage workers and things like that. So bringing these people back to school, bringing the entire family back to school. So that's something we did differently. We didn't just bring the students back or the kids back. We brought the adults back to
Yeah.
school. We brought the women back to school. We brought the males of the family back to school. Um, we went to the places that they worked and used their infrastructure. So if they were working at a university as a janitor, we would
Yeah.
go to the university 6 p.m., make them stay back, bring their kids in and teach them there. Uh,
Mhm.
so that was the idea, get the whole family educated.
Right. Right. Yeah, because it's kind of interesting, just from history. I mean, I don't obviously have the experience that you've had, but um, like you were saying in your culture, if you have a farm, the kids go to work the farm, you can't go to school, whatever, that type of thing. And it's kind of funny too, because even as a kid growing up, going to school, I'm like, oh my God, I wish my parents had a farm so I don't have to come to school. So it was, but yeah, I wouldn't want to be, working a farm all day long and not have school, at the same time. So it's a different culture, different ethnic outlook on life, right? So I applaud you for that. That's really very cool that you just kind of met the people where they were and just said, okay, how can we support you where you are?
Exactly.
Kind of thing. Yeah. So, yeah. So you did that for how long? Till COVID started?
Yes, right up until COVID, because we
Okay.
couldn't obviously go in anymore and meet these people,
Yeah.
which is when things changed
Yeah.
for the project, and we did things differently. So we stopped the education part of it.
Right.
Happily, most of my volunteers still do it,
Yeah.
uh, but I took a different direction with
Yeah.
Project Leap.
Right. So now you're just more or less doing what now? You're going to pick it up again, or are you just focusing on helping people start their own business?
So the direction it took was very interesting. So within those years of being with my volunteers and helping, I obviously had good networks with a lot of different charities around the world.
Right.
And they always asked me, how did you retain 100% volunteers? That
Right.
was the biggest point. And like I said,
Yeah.
it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to me. So I remember in June 20, when did COVID happen? 2020, wasn't it?
1920. Yeah.
Yeah. So in exactly when we were in lockdown, and I was like, "Ah, like we can't do Leap, Project Leap, how we used to with education.
Yeah.
What can I do? How can I help?"
Yeah.
And that's when the idea came, and I started training volunteers of other social organizations,
Okay.
and these were skill-based trainings.
Right.
So, I mean, we were the first sort of organization to do this in the world, to
Right.
work as a third party who can help your volunteers.
Right.
Obviously, still a complete charity base, no monetary benefits there at all. And that's exactly what I did. I started working in Nepal, Sri Lanka, all online, India, US, Australia, London, so many different countries, working with different volunteer groups, youth volunteers,
Yeah.
um, asking them what their skill differences are, training needs are, and then training them based on that.
I have some groups that I definitely refer you to. Some Rotary groups.
Of course, yeah, of course. Rotary has always been such a close companion.
Yeah.
They say once a Rotarian, always a Rotarian. So everywhere I go, I still work with Rotary groups and Rotaract groups. So it's always nice.
Yeah. 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 So cool. So where are you then in your business in that you're doing the other focus?
So this is what I'm doing with the charity project kind of a work. And with that comes a lot of research as well that I've been doing. Of late, I've tried to combine these different elements of my life because one human, and I've juggled them for so long that now I'm tired of juggling.
Yeah.
So with my businesses, I'm still working with incredible startups who work in this AI psychology realm. A lot of my work is with pure hard tech guys
Yeah.
and women who know how to make it, but just don't know how to sell it or
Right.
talk about it. Which is where I come in with, a good understanding of both sides of the coin.
Right.
And what I've done of late is combine this with my social work in the sense, introduce the field of humanitarian psychology. I have a lovely colleague in New Zealand who brought this field into place many years ago, called humanitarian psychology, which is using your degree of psychology for social impact.
Right.
And 2 years ago, when I was, trying to find my career path and merge some things together, this is when this field came up for me. And I said, well, I've been doing this for years, so why not give it a name?
Yeah.
And today, I've written like research on it, and I've worked with people on it, and I'm really just trying to bring the field to the UK and Europe and say, how can you use your degree, whatever it is,
Yeah.
to be something bigger than your 9 to 5 job, or to be
Right.
something bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen that with tech and with
Yeah.
my startups that I work with. By a rule, all the startups I work with do have a social impact side to them.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen that with psychology and psychologists, and them trying to create a bigger impact. I've obviously seen that with the social service sector and different kind of volunteers coming in from different degrees,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and encouraging them to use their degree for social work as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah. Sounds pretty incredible. I'll have to get you to come and maybe do a talk or something soon. But anyway, so what do you think you mentioned a few things about your clients have the biggest challenges, that they know what they do, but they don't know how to deliver it or tell their story so that people want to say, I want in, right? So what is some of the other things that you find, or the best clients maybe perhaps that you'd like to work with?
That is such a great question, to be honest. For me, like the way I choose who I work with is always with that conversation, and
Mm-hmm.
always with the impact that they are trying to create.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of the people I work with have some very, very crazy ideas,
Yeah.
ideas that perhaps you think are a little bit too out there, but that's exactly what gets me excited.
Right.
Um, I also see a little bit of myself in most of the people I work with.
Mm-hmm.
Not entirely me. I don't want mini me's in the world, but I see a little bit of, that risk taking
Yeah.
ability to say yes to different things.
Yeah.
In people who have been very successful, um, and who have created success for me as well, as an investor or as an advisor in their startups. So for me, like those kinds of clients are the best to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, it's also those people who don't know everything,
Right.
which is where you can actually see that there is space to add value, there is space to bring in something different.
Right.
um, I think growing up, because of my own experiences with tech and startup life, um, I can see why some kind of people, like for example, some people from a psychology background always feel inhibited or shy to talk to people with a tech or an economics background,
Yeah.
because they feel like the language doesn't match, and
Right.
and how will you come on the same page, and
Yeah.
their thinking is different. Yes, their thinking is different, but that's where
Yeah.
you can add value, is
Yeah.
when there's that collision, and you don't speak the same language, and one is a very black and white lawyer
Yeah.
tech person, and the other is a very gray area psychology social work person. So those people are very, very interesting for me to speak to, who come from a completely different background than I do. It's always a challenge, because
Yeah.
then I have to go in, study a lot,
Yeah.
um, research a lot, so I can make sense, but it's
Hmm.
always good.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea, like you were saying, the crazier idea, the better, because there's more room in there. They're just saying, I want to get this many clients. Like, yeah, okay. There's no room or space to grow in that space.
Absolutely.
You know, crazier it is.
And I have to say that I am quite privileged to be in a position where I can choose and
Mhm.
look at different startups and say where I'm going to invest my time.
Right.
Complete appreciate not everybody has that, but
Hmm.
I think where we can, and I was at a point of life where I didn't have that either. I
Yeah.
had to just accept every kind of work that I was getting.
Right.
But I think even in those instances, there is so much opportunity for you to find out what else can you do, how can you make this better, what you're working with, even if people are reinventing the wheel,
Yeah.
how can you add the sort of
Yeah.
salt innovation there,
Yeah.
what are the spices that you can bring in. That's, I think, a question to never stop asking
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Very important. Very important. Well, I really like your optimism and your go-getter and the wild thing. My thing when I first started kindness was world kindness. And I have a really simple solution, but how do you motivate people to do it? That's the other challenge, right? So, if I just firmly believe if we each did 3 kind acts a day, that we could have world kindness real quick. But, it's just like, okay, how do you incorporate that? Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've been working on as well of
Yeah.
late. That kindness, and that's I think a
Yeah.
major point of connection between you and me as well. Because I was just saying this to someone very recently as well, is I got a title in 2018 called
Yeah.
the UNESCO Kindness Leader. And
Yeah.
as a 18-year-old, it didn't mean much.
Right.
It meant something to be connected to UNESCO and to be called a leader.
Yeah.
But the word kindness itself didn't mean much, because
Yeah.
when you are in the act of doing something,
Yeah.
you very rarely realize the impact you're creating. It's
Yeah.
only hindsight that helps
Yeah.
you see that impact.
Yeah.
And that's true for a lot of people that
Yeah.
I work with as well, is because they're creating such a high level of impact, they don't realize what they're doing. Up
Right.
until, somebody tells them, you did this,
Yeah.
Then
Great job.
great job, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so of course over the years a lot of people have invited me to speak about kindness and what it means, and I've always just I've always just put a finger up in the wind and said, this is what it means to me today.
Yeah.
Tomorrow it could change. And that's the thing about kindness, is
Yeah.
pinning it down to one boxy definition is just, it's just
Yeah.
not the style of kindness. I can tell you what it is not,
Mhm.
and everybody intuitively knows what it is,
Yeah.
but to define it is such a hard job.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously over the years, who is thinking and talking about kindness has changed.
Yeah.
Initially it was just people like you and me, or people in social work who talked about kindness. Today, like organizations and
Yeah.
leaders are talking about kindness, when it has become a buzzword. So for
Yeah.
me, like the challenge is, how do you keep this going instead
Yeah.
of making it short-lived?
Yeah.
Um, and that's when, the fact that I have a different kind of background as well than just
Hmm.
psychology helps, is
Yeah.
I'm thinking of it as an investor, and I'm saying I would only care about kindness if it made the organization more investable.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing now is I've linked kindness to ESG, which is
Hmm.
environment, social governance. It's a framework or a model that investors use around the world to invest in a business, to see
Right.
how investable a business is. And if we can link kindness to ESG and figure out how can increase in kindness lead to a better ESG,
Yeah.
that's when people will listen. You
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
can't expect business people to suddenly drop the thought about profit and power,
Hmm.
um, and value,
Yeah.
and be like completely nirvana human beings. They will always think about these things. It's a business after all.
Yeah.
So for me, again, it's going to the place where they already are and helping them from there.
Yeah.
And I've linked kindness and ESG, um, to figure out a way to help businesses.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. No, because they all want a ROI on it, like return on investment. If I'm going to invest in kindness or implement it in my business, what ROI I'm going to get? And I think
Yeah.
there's lots of ROI results out there already, but there's still so many people just think, oh, that's just a fluff word, or,
Yeah.
how's it going to, affect myself? Or I'm really not interested to my employees or being kind to them. I'm more invested in what I want, and so you have all this mixed, situations where I don't think, like you were saying, like you go out and talk to people and have a conversation, what it means and what does it look like. And I think if more people would be probably willing to sit down and have a conversation, it might be better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It always comes down to having a conversation, because you're right that a lot of times when I talk about kindness, words like vulnerability, authenticity,
Yeah.
weakness sort of just follow naturally.
Yeah.
And I think it's about changing the narrative to say, can words like power, price, profitability, purpose follow kindness as well?
Yeah.
Uh, so for me, it's about changing that narrative.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time. I mean, people have boxed kindness into a one-dimensional helping someone when they are down in the dumps kind of a thing, but it
Yeah.
is more than that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation and I'd love to do it again another time, but time is ending. So do you have any final words that you'd like to say?
Um, it is always interesting. I've really enjoyed our conversation because you asked some really good questions that I haven't been asked before, and it is surprising, if you're getting like new questions after 7-8 years in the industry, it's always nice.
Yeah.
Uh, I think for me, when it comes to last words, it's always been about asking anybody who's listening, or looking at it to say like, please don't be passive. Just reach out, and tell me like any words you want to associate with kindness. How can we do that for you?
Yeah.
Um, in the larger sort of aspect of things, or really wherever you are in life, and whatever you're doing, it'll be so good to hear people's narratives and
Yeah.
how they are coming together.
Mm-hmm.
um, because that's all that my work is based on, is people's narratives and
Yeah.
how that's changing and how we can help that.
Yeah. Have a conversation about it all. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. Well, thank you for joining me today, Jessica, and we'll be chatting with you very soon again, I'm sure. So, okay, you have a great night. I know it's late for you.
All good, and thank you. I look forward to speaking to you again.
Yeah, okay, great. And in ending, just be kind to each other. That's all we have. So that's my final word.
Beautiful.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.